And these are the details of how you voted today. First of all, the Great Britain one. And there we have Labour with 43.5%, Conservative at 33%, Liberal 18%, and the Scottish National Party and others, Welsh Nationalist Party and so on, 5.5%. Of course, that doesn't show up well on a Great Britain basis for the Scottish Nationalists. And if that were true, if that really is the result tonight and tomorrow, then Labour would have 380 seats, Conservatives down to 200. Liberals sticking at 15, that's just one more or so than they had, and others, these would be chiefly nationalists, but of course also Powell's Ulster Unionists in Northern Ireland, 40 seats. But on that prediction, it would give Mr. Wilson a clear overall majority.
There's a great gap, obviously, between what the polls say and what the computer, with the help of all the experts, the psephologists, the statisticians, the answer that gives and the answer that we as a country give. But let's just have a look at the prediction that we're showing at the moment. It's going to vary, and it's kept very wide open now. This is roughly what we think, as a result of all that information, is likely to be the outcome. You can see that there's a broad difference between Labour Conservatives. It looks very much as though the Conservatives on this basis will get the 318 they need, because the low level is 311, the high 335. Labour, on the other hand, 273 to 297, not enough on their own to form a government. The Liberals, rather wide variation between 5 and 13, SNP 1 to 5, that's obvious. One thing I should say about that, Big Ben, when you see it, if you want a time check, does actually tell the right time, and it'll be telling the right time whenever it appears by some kind of computerized magic.
And here it goes. Here is our forecast. There it goes. The Conservatives 398, Labour 208, just over half the Conservative number of seats, the Liberal SDP alliance on 21, and the others on 23. Now remember, this is not based on any actual results yet. This is the result of a poll of 4,500 people. 42 up the Conservatives. These are the changes in the number of seats for each party from what we reckon they would have had in the old Parliament as it would have looked at the new boundaries. 32 down the Labour Party, 12 down the Liberal SDP alliance, and the others up 2. And there is the winning post, the 326 seats that any party needs for an overall majority. And the Conservatives are way clear there, as you can see, with a forecast majority of 146 seats.
Our poll forecasts that the Conservatives will be back in Westminster, but that their majority will be cut from its 1983 peak to just 26 in the new House. The Conservatives, 338, that's down 55 from dissolution. Labour, 261, that's up 52. The Alliance, on 26, down 1. That means that Mrs. Thatcher would remain Prime Minister. She'd have a majority in the House of Commons, but only if that calculation that we've put there is absolutely right.
And now our exit poll, based on talking to lots of people as they came out of the polls today in some of the key marginal constituencies. Just like any other poll, it has its range of error one way and the other, but it's just a first indication of the story we may be getting as the night goes on. I won't give it to you till 10 o'clock in case you still want to vote. But here we are, 10 o'clock, and our view is it's going to be a hung Parliament. This election is too close to call. We're saying it could be from the Conservatives short by 10 of an overall majority, to Labour, the largest party, and short by 13 of an overall majority. And the likeliest outcome is the Conservatives short by 25, which would leave John Major possibly as Prime Minister, but having to put together, make some arrangements with other parties or rely on other parties not to vote him out, to get the 326 he needs. We're saying at the moment the Conservatives are likely to be short by 25 of the 326, but as you see from that screen, it's possible that the Labour Party will be short by only 13 and that they will be the largest party, thus completely changing the political complexion.
Thanks, Kate. And as Big Ben strikes 10, the polls close, we can give you the results of our exit poll. We've spoken to 14,000 people in 200 constituencies tonight, and we hope they've been telling us the truth. There it is, 10 o'clock, and we say Tony Blair is to be Prime Minister and a landslide is likely.
And reaction from Sedgefield already down there on the right in the Labour Club, all applauding there. Conservative Party headquarters, rather more sombre scenes. So here are the details. Tony Blair to be Prime Minister, and this is why. Labour, 47%. The Conservatives, 29%, according to our exit poll. That would be the worst result, not just this century, but if you care to go back that far, to the Tory vote after the Great Reform Act in 1932, when they were led by the Duke of Wellington. The Liberal Democrats on 18%, pretty much what they did at the last election, others on 6%. NOP this time have asked 18,000 voters in constituencies across the country to fill in a simulated ballot paper outside the polling station just after they've voted. And fingers crossed, if they've been filled in truthfully, we won't have egg on our faces when the real results start coming through in 3/4 of an hour. And our exit poll says another Labour landslide. Tony Blair has won that second full term for Labour that was always his ambition. We are saying a Labour majority of around 160. It could be a bit either side of that. It could even be above the 179 that they had last time. Well, that's their first reactions, but let's now find out exactly how this exit poll came about, what it actually says about the percentage of the vote. Peter.
David, we talked about 18,000 people, and here's what they told us. The share of the vote. And if you think this looks awfully like that staggering Labour success in 1997, you'd be very right. 44% the Labour Party, 32% the Conservative Party, 17% the Liberal Democrats, and 6% the others.
The first event of election night is the exit poll. It's our first clue to what's happened today in the voting. And this year we've joined forces with ITV for this poll. It's an NOP Mori poll. We've spoken to over 16,000 voters at 120 polling stations at huge expense, out of 146,000 or so, 46,000 I think it is, polling stations. So what credence are we going to give to this when it comes through in just a moment?
The exit poll is an absolutely fascinating clue, no question, but it's no more than that. Usually the clue is right, but famously in 1992 it was completely wrong. The exit poll said a Labour government, the voters said a Tory government.
As Big Ben strikes 10, the polling stations will close. It will be too late to vote. And I can give you the result of our exit poll, which is this election has been won by Labour, but with a majority down from 160 to 66. The Conservatives are on 209. That's a gain of around 44 seats. A disappointing night if the poll is right for the Liberal Democrats. They're on 53, they gain around 2 seats. So there is the exit poll. Now, in a moment, as Big Ben strikes 10, we'll be able to give the result of our exit poll. For the first time, not an opinion poll, not people saying how they intend to vote, but people answering the question after they've voted. How did you vote? And that's how this is formed. We went to 130 different polling places to find this out. But remember, this is only an exit poll. If it was dead accurate, there'd be no need for anybody to go and vote. 10 o'clock. And this is what we're saying. It's going to be a hung parliament with the Conservatives as the largest party. And the figures, the Conservatives on 307, short by 19. Of the 326 they'd need for an overall majority, Labour on 255, the Liberal Democrats on 59, and others on 29. So we better get started. First, with our exit poll, which even now I can't reveal until Big Ben strikes 10. Remember, this is an exit poll, very carefully calculated, not necessarily on the nail. But here it is, 10 o'clock, and we are saying the Conservatives are the largest party. And here are the figures which we have. Quite remarkable, this exit poll. The Conservatives on 316, That's up 9 since the last election in 2010. Ed Miliband for Labour, 77 behind him at 239, down 19 from the last election. And the other parties, the Liberal Democrats and the Scottish National Party. Look at the Scottish National Party. 58 for Nicola Sturgeon. That's every seat but one in Scotland taken by the SNP. Nick Clegg for the Liberal Democrats on 10. That's down 47 from the last election. There are just over 20 seconds to go till Big Ben strikes 10. Then I'll be able to reveal the results of the BBC, ITV and Sky joint poll. Over 30,000 people, 144 polling stations were questioned today, and by the magic of psephology, we're able to predict what we think has happened tonight. And what we're saying is the Conservatives are the largest party. Note, they don't have an overall majority at this stage. 314 for the Conservatives, that's down 17. 266 for Labour, that's up 34. The SNP, the Scottish National Party, 34, down 22. Treat that figure with a bit of caution for technical reasons about the exit poll, which I don't need to explain right now. The Liberal Democrats on 14, up 6. And the smaller parties, Plaid Cymru stays on 3, the Greens on 1, none for UKIP, and the others 18.